Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Well, if you've watched the channel at all, you know that I personally have an affinity for small carry revolvers, so I try to look at them whenever I can. And so today, we're going to be looking at the Smith & Wesson 442. A lot of people who carry small revolvers, especially Smiths, carry 642, and they say, well, it's the exact same gun. Well, is it? We're going to address the differences and the similarities between these two and a bit more in just a minute. Alright, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you've watched our videos before and just haven't had the chance to before now and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can do that by locating the subscribe button in the lower portion of your screen there. Or you can scroll down below the video if you're on a mobile device and you can hit subscribe that way. It's a simple thing that helps us out a whole lot and we really appreciate it. So, Smith & Wesson 442. I like small revolvers mainly because if you take something like this, it's very simple. It's easy to carry on you and you don't have to think about, complicated holsters and, methods of concealing it. It's very tiny. And just to give you, of course, a look at that, we always like to do a little comparison here. Another revolver I have that I actually like quite a bit, but it's a bit heavier, is my little Kimber K6S, which is this guy right here. Now, this is a great revolver, don't get me wrong. And when I went 357, I will often carry this, because of course I can carry 38 Special on that too if I want to. But I carry 38 Special a lot. And that's why little J-frames, I think they're so great. These Airweights are just fantastic. They're so light. This gun is quite a bit heavier, but as you can see, even though it's a little bit bigger gun, it gives you a pretty good idea just how small and compact those little Airweights are. A lot of people, they base their carry decisions entirely upon capacity, how many rounds they can carry with them and how much defensive capability they think that's going to give them. And I base quite a few things off of comfort and, the ability to easily conceal the firearm. So I think J-frames are a very good choice, and you can see for yourself how easy that's going to be to carry. Alright, we're going to get right into the features here, and before we do, we're going to take just a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the Smith & Wesson 442 for our tabletop review today. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearms safety and education, and we can't thank them enough. So first of all, as usual, let's make sure it's safe. You can see it's a little 5-shot here, and the cylinder is empty, so we know we can put this bad boy where it needs to go. So, of course, this is a 38 Special. It is plus P rated. That means that you can perform sustained shooting out of this firearm with plus P ammunition, and it will have no ill effect. And I have found, personally, my level of comfort with 38 Special plus P as a defensive round is very, very high, and it's also a round that I can shoot very accurate for the type of gun that we're talking about here. These little snub-nose revolvers, these are not supposed to be super accurate at long distance, okay? But this is a defensive firearm. And if your target's that far away, there's probably no reason for you to be shooting at it in the first place. So, if you're in that fortunate situation where you have to use this, I believe its range and accuracy is going to be just fine. So, looking it over, we always like to start from the top down. As far as sight, you can see here that there is like a U channel, of course, that is just milled right into the top of the frame there. And that's paired up with this little basic ramp sight, which ends up giving you a basic sight picture like this. And once again, what we just mentioned about the range and typical purpose of use for this, that's going to be just fine. So, as we're getting into this point, I want to pause for a second and add another player to the board here. A lot of people say that, well, the 442, it's just the 642 in black. Well, is it though? Very, very similar, and most everything is the same, but they're not entirely the same. So the tiny things that are different, I'm going to show you here. And like I say, it's nothing big, but it is important to mention. So these are both J-frames are built almost exactly the same size. All these components are the same, but the difference is, so you have your aluminum alloy frame. Okay, this one has this black matte finish. Why does that matter? Well, this finish is going to be able to take a bit more, scrapes and bumps and that type of thing without really showing damage. Obviously, your matte finish, if it does get abused, it will expose those marks and scrapes a lot faster. Now, the 642 has a stainless cylinder, okay? And that's all fine and good. It matches the other components. You have a carbon steel cylinder and the 442. Well, why does that matter? For the purpose of this handgun, probably absolutely nothing. In a lot of cases, carbon steel is going to be slightly lighter than the stainless. In this case, it doesn't net any gain or loss because they both weigh the exact same amount. Both these revolvers weigh 14.6 ounces, so they're the same. And the grips are the same, trigger, everything else is the same. So you have a slight difference in the finish and the material of the cylinder. The barrels are, both stainless. So why does it matter? Well, it's argued by many people that as far as protection against, sweat, moisture, the stainless is probably going to wear better for you than the matte finish and the carbon steel cylinder. The carbon steel is more susceptible to corrosion and, sweat, moisture, those types of things than the stainless. Having said that, is that a big deal? Is it a deal breaker? I don't know. For me, I carry this particular specific version a lot. I love the 642. And it holds up very well, even having to be holstered against the body, in the middle of summer, heat and sweat and all that. And I don't find myself having to clean up the firearm a lot, so it does a pretty good job. So just keep in mind that the difference in finish and materials, is it really going to make a difference? I don't know. It depends on how much you expose it to the elements. But those are the slight differences between the two. Other than that, simple. You've got your cylinder release here. It is, once again, just like the other one. It's a 5-shot 38 Special Plus P. It is double action only, and it is hammerless. I personally like a hammerless revolver for a carry gun, and the main reason why is that I will typically carry this in something like a sticky holster or some other small holster, which we'll get to in the carry section. But even if I want to just drop this in my pocket, there's nothing really on this gun that's going to snag in my pocket, and I certainly wouldn't want to pull this out of my pocket and have the hammer snag on the inside of my jeans or something like that. So I like this design. I think that works out well. The trigger guards on these, they're big enough, and when I review a handgun, I always really focus on the trigger guard, make sure I've got enough space for my fingers. But as small as this is, I feel like I can get into this very well. And like I say, it's got that small kind of 2-finger grip, but this design works very well. It's a good grip. It feels well, and I think that it's very good. It's very, it's a very basic firearm, but the features of this firearm make it perfect for its intended purpose, which is a concealed carry firearm. All right, we're going to talk about the range. And it's not going to be a super long conversation when it comes to this, because if you shot a snub-nose revolver, you pretty much know what you're looking at, okay? This is a alloy frame, super light, 1.8-inch barrel firearm that is shooting a 38 Special Plus P cartridge. Are you going to feel it in your hand? Absolutely. Do I shoot 4 or 5 boxes of ammunition through this whenever I practice? No, I don't. I probably shoot a box, and by the time I've shot a box, I know if my shooting is on par with where it should be. And I move on and shoot something else in my collection. I like the design of these guns, and they're not for everybody. A lot of people will complain, well, a snub nose isn't very accurate. Well, of course, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a close-up weapon. Something like this, with a small barrel, within the range it's supposed to be used, which is defensive, it's going to work just fine. So if that's your concern, you don't have to worry about it being super, super accurate, because it's not supposed to be shooting long distance in the first place. In addition to me liking the fact there's no hammer exposed, of course, this is a double action only pistol. And I do like that in itself. It's about a 12, 13 pound is what I got on my scale. And that is just like having a safety all on its own. When you get your finger on this and engage the trigger, you can feel the weight of that, and it's a nice steady build up all the way to the break. It doesn't take much to get used to the way this shoots, and I was able to make really good shots from the very first time I started shooting one of these pretty quickly, because that trigger is so reliable as far as how it feels, and you can get used to it very well. And of course, you don't have some of the inherent problems you do with a revolver as you do on some of the semi-autos. Some semi-autos are really picky about ammo. And, you know, I can run anything from just regular, you know, white box ammo. You can take different types of defensive rounds. If you want something a little bit lighter, if someone's shooting this, you can use some of the Hornady. Personally, I really like the Spear, this 135 grain Gold Dot. I think this is a great cartridge. I shoot this one all the time, and I really love it. So it's a good shooting little gun for the effective range it's supposed to be used in. I think it does a really great job, and they're super reliable, and part of that's just the inherent reliability of a revolver. So what's it like to carry the Smith & Wesson 442 as your carry gun? Well, in a word, easy. Very easy. I've mentioned before that I carry this gun, and more importantly, I carry its twin on a pretty regular basis. I really like it. And why do I do that? Well, I know a lot of people that brag about fancy setups, and they have these ridiculously pistols with red dots and extended magazines and all this stuff. And I appreciate how good those weapons are and how fancy they are. But realistically, how big of a gun can you carry on you consistently and be the least bit comfortable? You know what I mean? If you're trying to go somewhere, can you really put a Glock 17 with a light and a, you know, and a red dot? Can you do something like that and really be comfortable all the time? Well, for me, my experience is no. The answer is no. But I can take something like this, and I can put this right in my pocket. Now, I can do it a couple different ways. Typically, if I'm going to carry one of these, I'm going to use something like a sticky holster. Not in the waistband. Don't get me wrong. These are designed to be used in the waistband or a number of ways, but to me these are great to put in your pocket, because most jeans and slack pockets, you can put something like this in your front pocket pretty easy, because it's about the size of a wallet. So if you take the revolver and you stick it in there and it goes down your pocket, you know, orientation, just sitting up, if you need it, you simply go in your pocket and you draw it out. And then when you get finished, you know, you can just put it back in there and snug it back where it belongs. The other good thing is you don't even have to have a holster if you really don't want to. Now, I always advise it because I think having the trigger area covered up is good. But, you know, I know people that carry these just dropped right in their pocket. And once again, this 13-pound double action only trigger pull is one of the reasons why I think that's even a remotely acceptable option. You're not going to accidentally pull this trigger, is what I'm getting at. But it's super, super light, and whether you decide to drop it directly in your pocket or put it in a sticky in your pocket or put it in the waistband, or if you want to go a little bit further and, you know, use something that you can actually wear inside the waistband, maybe a single clip design, something like that, there are all kinds of good options for that. A lot of people I know will carry something like this, you know, simple, but it's still inside the waistband. They feel like they got a little bit more control over, you know, where it's going to sit. They don't have to worry about, you know, whether something like this is going to come loose in the waistband. So you got a ton of options. But the bottom line is that this revolver is so light and so easy to manage that no matter which way you decide to carry it, I think you're going to find it's extremely comfortable. And the reason I bring that up so much is because you're not likely to carry a gun if it's not comfortable. I know that no matter what I'm looking at in the safe, I can grab this. I know I can put it in my pocket, whether I'm wearing shorts or whether I'm dressed a little bit nicer, and I will always be comfortable having this on me. And I know I've got 5 shots, which for me is enough. You got to ask yourself, what's enough for you? Overall impressions of the Smith & Wesson 442. I think it's a great carry gun. There's not too many carry guns that I review that I just will come out and say it's great, because I have certain criteria that I always use when you hear me talk about a carry gun. It needs to be, comfortable, reliable, and accurate. And a lot of people will want to argue and say, well, a snub-nose revolver is not that accurate compared to a lot of other guns. Well, depends on what you're doing with it. As a carry gun, I think a snub-nose revolver is as accurate as it needs to be. It's going to be used up close. Is it going to be as accurate as a, full-size framed H&K or a Glock 19 or any number of larger, standard size firearms? Of course not. It's not supposed to be. But this is supposed to be a carry firearm. And for its purpose, I think it's just fine. Pricing, depending on where you go, you'll see these, around $500 or a little bit more. Higher in some place, depends on the market. But, and some people, that's out of their budget. They won't buy anything over a few $100s or whatever. But to me, if you're going to carry a revolver, that's not a ridiculous asking price for Smith & Wesson's quality, reliability, and I really think they do give you that. I've carried Smith revolvers for a long time, and very readily trust my life to them. So it's worth a little bit of extra money to me. They're very simple. Is there anything I'd like different about these? Yeah, to me, even though it's a snub-nose revolver, I'd really like to have a high visibility, dot or something on the front sight, just so you can quickly acquire the front sight when you need to. But once again, at the range this is used, you're pretty much going to be pointing at the target anyway. So I think it'll work fine in the environment and the effective range it should be used. And I think for the money, it's a very, very good value. And it's certainly one of the more comfortable options you can have. And that's why I think this is such a great carry gun. All right. That's going to do it for today. As always, we thank you for being with us. We'll be back very soon with another video for you. So until that time, everybody, please stay safe and have a great day. Thank you.